Hello, and today I'm going to be talking about what is Joyboy. And before I do that, remember to like and subscribe. So for a bit of background, Joyboy lived during the Void Century, and he helped to create the poneglyphs, so probably was an enemy of the world government at that time. However, that is the only thing we know about him for sure, so a lot of it has to be theorized. Is Joyboy a title or a name? So it is a title because when Kaido knocked Luffy off the Onigashima, he said using air quotes, so you weren't Joyboy, or you aren't worthy to be Joyboy after all. You're not strong enough. So this suggests that Joyboy wasn't simply a person. However, it's a title that can be earned with power. Also, Joyboy is a very sort of coincidental name. So if we take it literally as a title, it could mean bringer of joy or peace, because Luffy, whenever he visits countries and he likes the people there, he always tries to free them. So he tries to free Wano from Kaido, Dressrosa from Doflamingo, and Alabasta from Crocodile. Where was Joyboy from? So where during his lifetime did he live? And so there's three options: the ancient city, Wano, or Ohara. So he did live at one point in the ancient city because he lived 800 years ago during the Void Century, and that was when the ancient city was the main civilization. And for him to be on the poneglyphs, you can assume that he was probably very powerful, or just high up in society to be able to do that, or at least have some level of fame. And I think after the fall of the ancient city, when it was maybe destroyed by the world government, he would have gone to Wano, because someone had to have taught the shogun how to make the poneglyphs, as they can't, as I think the language of the poneglyphs originated in the ancient city. And then if the ancient city dies and none of the population goes to other countries to tell them about the ancient city and the language will die with it. So I think Joyboy probably went to Wano and told the shogun how to read the language, and then that was passed down for generation to generation, and they then made the poneglyphs. Is Joyboy still alive? The answer is maybe. Physically alive, body and soul, he would have to be Emu. It's because it's the only realistic answer, as Emu is the most mysterious person in the series, even more than Shanks. And there was a fan theory which was the people with the strange eyes are immortal, so what that refers to is Zunisha's eyes, Emu's eyes, and Mihawk's eyes are all very similar. And it's not actually that insane, because if he was going to be the king of the world, if you had to place a bet on anyone to be immortal, it would probably be him. And Dracula Mihawk is based on a vampire. I think vampires are immortal. He would be immortal, and Zunisha's lived for 1,000 years, which is pretty much immortal already. If we go with the idea that Emu was immortal and was alive during the Void Century, there is a good chance that he was in fact Joyboy, because Joyboy might be one of those people that is those sort of rulers that treats it like a game. So in the same way as Enaru was treating the Straw Hats entering Upper Yard and attacking all of his members and counting how many were left on each side, he considered that all a game. If you can apply the same to Joyboy, so he's just pulling the strings. So he was alive during the Void Century. He took the title of Joyboy and wrote the poneglyphs, and then he's still alive in present day in One Piece. So, and he was good then. Now he wants to be evil, to sort of confuse all the people who can read the poneglyphs. Gives himself a challenge to give his life purpose. And then if we go with the other idea, which I personally like more, is that Joyboy's sort of soul is alive, or he's sort of trapped in a sort of a form of prison. So the straw hat in the base of Marie-Joie, that is what I think is probably where Joyboy is sort of imprisoned, because the straw hat is frozen in a kind of freezer, a sort of a giant freezer, which is very odd considering it's just a straw hat. Because even if it was like a weapon and it was one of the ancient weapons, it's still, there's no point in freezing it and making sure it can't move if it doesn't have a mind of its own, and is therefore able to move without anyone else's manipulation. And therefore it makes sense that it would be Joyboy, because as it's frozen, it would probably keep him trapped. Also, it is giant. I mean, given Emu may be tiny, but it's highly likely that it's a huge hat that could be worn by one of the giants, and it would make sense that Joyboy would be encased in it, which would make it unusual. And with the same logic as Zone uses in their hybrid form. So, for example, Drake is a very tall guy, but in his hybrid form, he's a lot taller because he's partly dinosaur. So, Straw Hat is small, but when it's got a bit of sort of human in it, it grows a bit closer to human size. Also, it would make sense why it was so isolated and only Emu has visited it, and that it would just be sort of top secret. Either probably only the five elders and Emu are aware of it, and none of the other celestial dragons. Also, when Emu saw it, he said, "So this is where he hid it," and that refers to it must refer to Joyboy. And this works even better because if Emu was immortal and alive during the Void Century, he would have known Joyboy and referred to him in such colloquial terms. So it was, instead of saying, "Oh, so this is where Joyboy hid it," he knew him, and he said, "So this is where he hid it," as though he had some sort of possible rivalry with him at the time. Is there a connection between Luffy's Straw Hat and Joyboy? And are they the future sort of Joyboys? So there's an obvious connection between the giant Straw Hat and Joyboy, but what if the small Straw Hat had a connection? And I think it does, because Roger was a lot like Luffy, and he freed a lot of people as well. And so you can call him Joyboy if you want, Bring of Joy. Luffy got it, and you're probably thinking, okay, what about Shanks? But I think Shanks, although he had the straw hat, he deserved to have it. It wasn't, Roger gave it to Shanks, but more so that it could be passed on to Luffy. Although that's probably wasn't what it was going in his mind. Shanks is more of a messenger than one of the Joy Boys, because Roger was definitely a Joy Boy. Luffy is. However, Shanks, I mean, sure, we just haven't seen much of him, and he's probably freed some other people, but I think, as of now, he's better off left as a messenger. Anyway, thank you for watching, bye.